Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorns, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
Today I'm here with Kirk Phillips from Ironwood Ranch in Valley View, Texas. Thanks for joining me today, Kirk.
You bet. Thanks, Molly, and thanks for the opportunity to get on Hired Hand Live with you.
Of course. Why don't you start by telling me a little bit about yourself and about your breeding program?
Sure. Well, as you said, Kirk Phillips. I'm with Ironwood Ranch here in Valley View. I did not grow up in the agricultural business. I grew up in the panhandle of Texas, so it was all around me. And I had a lot of, friends that had farms and ranches, but never really, was involved with that as a kid. And so about 5-6 years ago, my wife and I made the decision after our kids were out of the house. We lived in the city on the golf course, and it was getting a little crazy. We said, we're going to get out of here and move to the country. And so we found 28 acres, beautiful part of Texas up here in the Cross Timbers area, and bought our ranch. And so that's how we kind of got here on the property.
So I was reading on your website a little bit before this, preparing, and I noticed Renee, your wife, she does have a little bit of an agricultural background, right?
She does. Her father was in the agricultural business out in East Texas, and he had a feed store and ran cattle and all of that. And we would, unfortunately, he passed away before we started this little, endeavor, because I would love to have him around to pick his brain, because he was a longtime rancher and farmer, and so he really knew the business.
So what did she think when you said that you wanted to get into Longhorns?
Well, I mean, she's very supportive. Of course, she said her father would say, absolutely not, let's go get some black cows. But she was supportive because, we growing up in Texas, she and I are both natives, and growing up in Texas and seeing them around in different places, they're the iconic symbol of the West. And so she was excited. But the other reason why she agreed to this is, I have a full-time job. I travel quite a bit. And so I don't have a lot of time. And so when we started looking and researching, it's like, what's the easiest animal that we can raise that's going to take the least amount of my time? And after researching, Longhorns are self-sufficient. They don't have the calving problems, on and on and on. And so it just kind of became a no-brainer. And so that's what really kind of helped trigger our decision.
So once you landed on that Longhorns were the right fit for you, how did you go about finding the first ones that you wanted to purchase?
Well, I started with the internet and started looking around, found the TLBA website, and actually found some breeders in the area and reached out to a few of them and all. But really the connection started with Bill and Suzanne Torkelson down in Fayetteville. My sister and her husband own a 1,000-acre ranch, as it turns out, less than 15 minutes from Bill and Suzanne. And so we were making a trip down there to see family, and I said, let's just, called Suzanne and, said, hey, introduce myself, say I'm going to be down there, and if, I'd love to just come by and visit with you and pick your brain. And, we just fell in love with Bill and Suzanne. They were just so supportive, so welcoming. And so that's really kind of where it all started. I mean, we really started getting our, hands on the animals and seeing what it was all about through them.
Did you leave there that day with a couple, or did you pick a few out and then think on it, or how did that go?
No, I mean, it was, it was more just, let's learn a little bit. Right. And then of course, after that and doing some more research, I said, well, we're going to go back down there and, we're going to get our first ones from Bill and Suzanne because, the quality of their animals, their program really impressed us. And that's what we did. And so we ended up going back down and picking out our first 6 from them. And then they ended up delivering them on, I believe it was July 5th of 2018. And so they delivered 6, and on they delivered on July 5th. On July 6th, we had 7 because we had a little calf the very next day. So that was pretty exciting.
Did you come up with a fun name for it?
Oh yeah. So so it was a little bull calf out of Swagger over a cow named Supreme Bouquet, and we just love Supreme Bouquet. She's just gorgeous, big, nice roll to her horns, kind of a white line back over red. And she was the boss around here for many years, but she drops this little calf, and he was just the cutest thing any of us had ever seen, right? And so bull calf, we named him Ironwood Supreme. And if you've been to our website or seen any of our Facebook posts, occasionally you'll have words from Woody. Well, that's that little calf who's now grown up. We ended up steering him because eventually it got to the point of, what are we going to do with this bull calf? I don't have enough property to have a bull out here. And she said, I call Suzanne. Again, my first call is always pick up the phone, call Suzanne. And I called her, and she said, well, should I steer him? I don't know. And she said, Kirk, I'm going to just ask you a question, and depending on how you answer the question, that'll guide your decision. And I said, okay, what's the question? She goes, do you ever see Woody leaving your property? I'm like, not over my life, because my wife and my daughter will both kill me. She said, well, there's your answer. You got to steer him. So we steered him, and he, living his best life. He's 112 inches tip to broken tip. He broke off 8 inches. And the bases of his horns are 23 inches around.
Wow.
He is a big old puppy dog. So Woody will never leave.
Nice. So you mentioned that at the beginning of his name is Ironwood, obviously. Talk to me a little bit about how you and your wife came up with your ranch name.
Well, as I said, we live in a beautiful part of Texas called the Cross Timbers. And the Cross Timbers are noted because there's a lot of post oaks, and a lot of blackjack oaks, cedar elms and things like that. But these oak trees are just unbelievably beautiful. In fact, if you look at our ranch logo, it's a longhorn under one of these big oak trees. And anyway, so we're looking at these trees, and I started doing some research, and I actually went to school to be a forestry major many, many years ago. So I had that background, but I knew that one of the nicknames for these oaks, because they're so hard, is it's ironwood. And so it was just like, a natural progression, that's what we're going to call it, is Ironwood Ranch. And so, like I say, my daughter, who is a graphic designer, we call her the head wrangler. She designed our logo, and then, we're starting to figure out a brand. And so we went through a lot of different iterations, and my daughter's the one that came up with this. And people look at our brand, and it looks like a longhorn. But when I tell you this, you won't forget, it's actually a rolling W on top of a rocking I, Ironwood. So there's the IW. And so when you look at it now, you can see there's a W on top of the I. So I thought that was pretty clever.
That is very clever. I like it. So you mentioned Woody, and that you said that was back in 2018. Is that right?
Let's see. Yes, that was it, because we bought the property in 17 and they came on in 18, right?
So tell me a little bit about where you've come since then. Who else have you purchased animals from? How has your program changed? Let's talk about that.
Well, our program, be honest, hasn't changed a lot, but it's beginning to, because when we first bought these first 6, it was just like, stick them out there, enjoy them, again, one of the first things is to maintain our ag exemption for the property and all of that. And like I said, I've only got 28 acres, so I didn't feel like I could run a lot of animals. So for the first couple of years, it was really just, let's enjoy these. And they were bred when we picked them up. And so we had some calves. And so we're able to, some of those calves we've kept, some of them that we've sold. But really, a hobby. I mean, it was, really didn't think, we were going to make this into a business. And as people who own animals like this quickly figure out, it's not an inexpensive endeavor. And so, about a year and so ago, we made the decision, okay, let's get a little more serious about this. And so we're kind of reevaluating our herd and our program. One of the early things that I learned, and again, I love Bill and Suzanne and their animals are great. We went and drove around the pasture to pick out the first animals, right? And to me, there's a certain look of a Longhorn. I love that, Texas handlebar look. And so we bought these 6. We drove around the pasture. She's telling us who they are and all that. And I'm not really thinking, about long-term some of the genetics. We ended up buying a cow and her daughter out of the first 6. So we had 3 animals that were all directly related out of the first 6 animals. And in hindsight, not maybe the best decision, but we were fortunate because they were all 3 very good animals. 2 of them are still on property, and now we've had more calves and generations after them. So I would advise anybody starting out, don't buy all the same family. Spread it around a little bit. But we've been real fortunate because they were good animals.
It is hard, though. I mean, you see the mom and then you see a daughter. You want to keep them together, right? It's hard.
Right. Yep. But it's just the look. It's just, it's just the way they look. I'm like, that's, and you drive around and there's I like that one. Let's do that one. And then, by the time it's all done, you like I say, it's like mom and daughter and,
Yeah.
So.
So what kind of caused the shift? How you said recently you've been kind of reevaluating the genetic side of things more. What kind of caused that shift and made you decide to put more effort into that?
Well, again, it's because we're moving this from, like I said, I want this to be self-sustaining, and so, right now we are, clearly subsidizing the herd, but I want to get the herd to the point where it kind of sustains itself financially. And so in doing that, okay, well, what is, what are people looking for? What are the animals? And again, we've been to sales. We've had some animals in futurities. We've talked to people. We've grown our network, and we're starting to figure out, the names, those animals, those genetics that we like, that can produce well, that we feel like we can bring into the program and improve and move our program forward. Just keep increasing that genetic quality so that people look at our animals, they know they're well bred, they know that they meet all the characteristics that you're looking for, and so become more marketable. And again, but I've only got 28 acres, so it's not like I can run 50 head, right? I've got very limited roster spots, and so now we're buying fewer animals, obviously, but we're definitely moving up the quality chain.
That's a great way to put it. I love the roster spot analogy.
Yep. Right.
So are you keeping it close to your vest, or can you tell me about some of those genetics that you're planning to add and kind of what we'll see in your program in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Sure. Well, I mean, number one, and again, we started out with all females. And I was fortunate enough that, again, because of my relationship with the Torkelsons, I was able to work with them on some breeding and all that. But we ended up partnering with them originally on a bull that I really fell in love with. Again, common name, it's Swagger over Slams Rose. And his name is Bob Lee. And, so I used him and brought him on the property, fell in love with him. I like, what he looks like. You look at what he's starting to put on the ground from a calf, he's got all the traits we're looking for. And so, and then, the partnerships changed, but we still have Bob with us. But outside of Bob, this past year, we are starting to do a lot more AI. So, for example, I've got a Rebel HR daughter, and I've got a Hubbell's 20 gauge daughter. And I know one of your questions later is favorite bulls. 20 gauge is it's a hard decision, but I love 20 gauge, daughters, and I haven't seen one I haven't liked. So, again, we're going to be doing a lot more on the AI program. And on this past year, we worked with, Justin and Rhonda Sabio, at EJS and really appreciate them. So, again, we're going to start leveraging some of these, higher quality genetics on the bull side. We'll still have Bob, and he'll fill his spot on the roster. But, like I say, 20 gauge is definitely going to be in there. Probably going to be bringing in some Rural Safari Son. I really like that bull and what he's doing, because I want to bring some black and white into the herd as well. That's kind of my next thing. I've got plenty of the traditional reds and browns, but I have no black, and so I want to get some black and white in there. So those are some of the things that we're looking at doing. And then, like I say, we're selling some of those older genetics that we've had, and then replacing those roster spots with some different genetics. And we've done that the last couple of years. I mean, this past year we picked up It's Tough to Drag, which is a drag iron granddaughter, and out of Cowboy Tough Checks. And we love her coloration. Again, she's got that high Texas handlebar. We got her. She was bred to PCC Cactus Jack. We got a great little bull calf out of him, called Iron Cactus, and he's just a tank. But again, I can't keep all these bulls, so we've got to make some decisions there. But we brought him in. We brought another cow in last year, DC Roxy, which is out of a cow named Miss Juliet. She was bred to Smoking Gun Check, so we've got again, a daughter out of that. So again, trying to diversify up some of these genetics, to again improve, move the herd forward.
Most of those animals you mentioned that you've added, were they purchased at sales, or are you visiting breeders' ranches and doing some private treaty purchases? How are you bringing them into your herd?
Well, the last two, those two that we've purchased were both at sales. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do with my schedule is I need to get out and visit more ranches. And, in lieu of that, the internet, has been, and through your software, makes it really, really easy to go out there and really do a lot of research. So my goal this year is to try to get out and visit a few more ranches. And there's a few that I've got my eye on, and some animals specifically that I'm interested in. And so we'll just, have to go see what they look like.
Can you share the ranches with me? I won't make you name the animals because I know how everyone is secretive about that, but can you share the ranches?
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, well, we went up to, and we're partners on Bob now with the Nicodimes up at Mander's place.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've got some things that we've looked at up there. Wayne Manning and I'm trying to get out to see him at M7, and our schedules have been a little bit hit and miss. And I want to try to tie in a trip to the Buxtons, because I'm not going to be that far from them out there. And then this summer, we're going to be going out to 3P, the Shakotas out in Perry, Texas. And they've got, I really like what they're doing with their programs. I want to go out there and take a look at that.
Nice. What about what's your sales schedule for the year look like? What sales are you going to attend?
As far as attending, well, we just got through with the Eddie Woods Classic. In fact, we sold one of our Bob Lee daughters there. We're going to be at the Glendenning's, the Fiesta sale. Looking forward to that coming up. Of course, we'll be at the Legacy sale coming up here in Grapevine in March. Texoma Classics coming up in April, May. So we'll be hitting a bunch of those sales as well, and already starting to look through the catalog, see what's in consign, see if there's something that again for me would be that next level step for us.
All right. So I picked up on how you mentioned 20 gauge is your favorite bull. So
Yep.
Now I'll put you on the spot. What about your all-time favorite cow?
All-time favorite cow is, I kind of jotted this down. I was thinking about it. It's like, I don't really necessarily have an all-time. I've got several all-time favorite bulls.
It's hard. It's a hard question.
I mean, if I had to pick one, it would have to be drag iron. I mean, just if there's only one drag iron, and I just, 80-inch tip to tip. He's, at the time that was something, but I just love what his genetics have brought to so many. I mean, you just look at the progeny that he's been a part of, and from the, just all the traditional qualities you want in a good longhorn, right? But drag iron, 20 gauge, swagger, top three. On the cow side, number one, I got to start with Tari Graves. I mean, she's if you go back and look at her history and the influence she's had on the maternal side, she's an all-time, cow. But short of hers, probably Slams Rose, and love what she's done. And again, we've got Bob Lee that's part of those genetics on the bull side. So those would probably be, of the animals outside of my own herd. Of course, all of mine are my favorite.
Right. That's we should have an asterisk by that question. Say right. You can't pick your own.
Right.
Is there a Longhorn breeder or two or three? Usually folks have a few answers to this question as well, that you kind of just have up on a pedestal. You just love everything about what they're doing.
Well, sure. I mean, like I say, Bill and Suzanne Torkelson, Bull Creek. I mean, I love their animals. I love their program. Like I say, I was just down there and stopped in for 20 minutes with Suzanne because I was down at my sister's house. It's like, I always got to stop by, and she meets me at the, as soon as I pull up, she's like, "Come on, let's get in," and we just drive around and look at the house. And I just love her program and love what she's. But again, I'm not going to be, I don't have that ability to be what she is. So you start looking at programs, who can I compare myself to? Dr. Cole, up in Missouri. I had the pleasure of meeting him. I met him casually a couple times, but I guess it was the Texoma last year that I really got to sit down and spend some time with him and really found out that, he's not that dissimilar. But if you look at all of his animals, and he's got a lot of 20 gauge and all that, it's kind of the same thing. He's got a very limited roster, but boy, everything in there is just like, I'd take that cow. I'd take that. It's just he's done really, really well. And that's, so for me, if I had to say for a pure comparison, his program is got to be right up there.
And you said, don't know if I heard you quite right. You said Dr. Cole, right? Roger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Roger Cole. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions.
It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more.
And now, back to the podcast.
So now that you have Longhorns, what's your favorite part?
Hanging out in the pasture with them after a day at work. I really do. I mean, I have a job where I sit, in an office and deal with computers and all that, and just being able to get outside and just hang out. I mean, my wife, I'll just walk out and say, I got to go have some cow time. And if anybody knows me, I like cigars, and I'll grab a cigar and I'll just go out and I'll graze with cows, just hang out with them. I just, love being around them. They just have such a calmness, to them for me. But that's my, like I say, just being with them.
Do your wife and kids also enjoy just kind of spending time with them, or is it a family deal sometimes?
Well, yes and no. My wife really enjoys them sitting on the back porch and looking out at the pasture. She's gotten more involved in some of the maintenance of them, getting out, and when we're having to do vaccinations, we're doing horn measurements or whatever. She's getting better about getting out and doing that with me. And my daughter, when she was here, she's actually moved now, but she kind of the same thing. She's kind of the record keeper, when we're out there, giving taking measurements and giving vaccinations. She was keeping track of all that. So they enjoy them, but yeah, I'm the one out there, in the mornings, putting hay out or, branding or whatever.
Yeah. Do you have any funny Longhorn stories you can share with us?
Oh yeah. And again, this just shows you how much of a neophyte I was. And it goes all the way back to that. It goes back to Woody. And so like I say, Woody, we got our cows. The very next day, Woody was born. And, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the way my property set up, I have what I call a maternity pasture. It's a smaller, 2-acre pasture when I know they're getting ready to catch. And I didn't know, but it just so happened that's where she was. So I knew when he was born, right? So he's born, everything's great, and I let him in the main pasture. And like we've got a lot of woods and tree cover and all of that. Next day I get up to go check on Woody, and the cows are out there, and Woody is nowhere to be found.
Oh no.
And I mean, I'm literally scouring this place, running through the wood, walking through the woods, running around, trying to find this calf, and I cannot find him. And I mean, I'm like, he's got out, he's gone. And so our vet at the time, his office is literally a mile down the road. So I called the vet and I said, hey, I'm, Kirk, has anybody reported a calf out, or anything, I'm like, because I've got one I can't find and everything. And so, I mean, and we're putting stuff out on Nextdoor and all this about looking for this calf, right? And I mean, where is it? So finally I'm like, I'll call Suzanne. Suzanne, I don't know what to do. So pick up the phone, call Suzanne. Hey, Suzanne, I can't find this calf. And she goes, what's Mama doing? And I said, looked over and I said, well, Supreme's just grazing. She goes, that calf is just fine. I'm like, well, how do you know that? She said, because if something was wrong with that calf, that cow would be, she'd be having a fit, right? And I'm like, are you sure? Are you really sure? She goes, trust me. And sure enough, she's like, that cow knows right where that calf is, and she can probably see him, and you can't. And an hour and a half later, all of a sudden, here that little calf comes and starts nursing. And I'm like, well, just tells you how much of a rookie I am. So
I can just hear Suzanne telling you that in her nice, calm tone, just nothing to worry about, right?
It'll be okay.
Trying to probably hide the giggle in her voice at your question. Oh, that's a good one. I feel like that is a common newbie worry, right?
Right. And that's why we've learned, over the years is, like say, as we figured this whole process out, when we know they're about due, they go to that maternity pasture, because if we don't have them calving up there, we won't know for a week, even though we don't have a big place. It's pretty heavy wooded in some spots. You won't see them.
Well, lesson learned, right?
Lesson learned.
So you mentioned before that you've looked at some breeders' websites, kind of like virtual visits.
Right.
What would you say are the last 3 sites you've looked at in your search history? Are they any different from the folks we've already talked about?
Well, I was actually, I was on Arrow. Is it Arrowwood?
Arrowhead?
Arrowhead,
like the Gallery of Horns?
The gallery, and I love that. I mean, you can just go through there and lose yourself going through all those animals. So Arrowhead is one. Like I say, P3 with the Skodas. I know I was on there recently. M7, I was on there recently. Of course, my own. I was on there, updating some stuff. But I've been, Holy Cow. I was on Holy Cow the other day. Like I say, as I've been starting to, research more of what's that next animal look like for us.
How much time do you think you spend looking at Longhorn websites?
Well, it's increasing. I would say now I'm probably on the website 4 to 5 hours a week. At night. I've got time. I'll sit down and just start pulling out. Like I say, usually it starts with Arrowhead. I go there. I'm scrolling. Oh, let's take a look at that animal, and then go to that website, and then look at the progeny, and look at you know how it is. You get down these rabbit holes, and then 20 minutes later, it's like, wait, what was I looking at?
Where did I start?
Where did this all begin? But but again, that's and that's what I love about your program is because you can make all those links. It just makes it very easy to follow. Follow the pedigrees, the progeny, and see everything that.
What would you say is your favorite social media for not only finding animals, but also promoting your own?
Well, that would be Facebook. I'm not a big social media guy, but and I would not be on social media if it weren't for the Longhorns. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the go-to right now because it's familiar and we've kind of got that figured out. And I know we've been working with Bear Davidson. He's been giving us some advice of some things. So now maybe the next step is to move to Instagram. I've never been really on that platform, and so I need a 12-year-old to come show me how to use all that.
That'd be great for your daughter. It's a very creative platform. She would probably excel at that for you.
Yeah. So yeah, that would probably be the next step for us. But by and large, Facebook is where I spend a lot of time posting and also looking.
Well, what haven't we covered about your program that you want our listeners to know?
Wow. Like I said, I think the main thing is we live on the property. We are with these animals every day. I'm with them every day for sure. And I just really like, I think we started with some good quality animals. We've got some great animals, and I'm really looking forward to kind of like say taking that next step. Part of that next step, as my wife and I are talking about, trying to find more land because, we, as you know, we took one to sale in January at Eddie Woods, and it just about broke my wife's heart. I'm like, you can't keep them all. We can't keep them all. We've got to be, and if it was up to her, she'd keep them all. But I think if we could find some more property that was reasonably close by, that we could expand, that would be one thing that we'd be looking at. But I just, I want people to know that, when they see our animals and see that Ironwood brand on them, that, they're getting a very well bred, well cared for animal, and that's got a good temperament. It's got all the traits that we look for: calving, production through calving, milk production. That cow can put a calf out on the ground every year and raise up, and that's kind of what we want to be known for. Is just if you see an Ironwood animal, that's a good animal.
What about any parting words of wisdom for breeders who are maybe in your same development phase, or maybe, where you were 4 or 5 years ago? What parting words of wisdom would you have for them?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to people and get, pick their brain. I mean, that's the one thing about this industry. The people have been wonderful, very giving of their time. Great friendships have come out of this. And just don't be afraid to talk to people and ask questions, but also don't be afraid to, again, I'm kind of making this transition, like, we're a small ranch, who's going to want to, what can we do? But then you start looking around, and size has nothing to do with it. It's the quality of the animals that you're, raising and producing. And that's what really matters. So don't be afraid to, take that step, and, always be looking to improve that. What can I take and improve on the next animal?
That's great advice. I feel like quantity or quality over quantity, right?
Right. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed learning more about your program, and hopefully when folks see you at some of those sales you mentioned coming up, they'll take the time to learn a little bit more as well.
Well, thank you so much, Molly. And again, appreciate the time and being on here, and look forward to seeing you down the trail somewhere.
Same.